Hi, guys. Welcome to another episode of our podcast, Talent First. Today, we have with us someone who's truly living up to having AI as part of their designation. Someone who's a true AI leader, not just adding AI for the heck of it, but truly living up to it and building AI in our Bharat, in our country. So, hi, Madhu. Hi, how are you?
Hey Raghav, I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Pretty good, pretty good. So, Madhu, I don't know if you've seen our podcast. So, we usually start with the journey, with your elevator pitch. So, would love to get that.
Myself, Madhu Hosadurga.
Right.
Been with, it was not called AI those days, but in the data and analytics and AI space for kind of 22 years now. Started my journey with General Electric and then spent around 6 years as a Six Sigma specialist as well as, business intelligence specialist. Post that, spent about 8 years with Wipro Technologies, helping many Fortune 500 companies across the globe. Stayed in US for about 5 years and then UK for another 5 years. And then went to my MBA at the University of Oxford.
Wow.
And then had an opportunity to start my startup, which I ran for around 4.5 years. And then landed in a job at Schneider Electric. So which has been now 5 years. So that's kind of very brief of my career.
That's a very quick one. I love the way you summarize it so fast. And I know how deep it is. So let's try to take a step back.
Sure.
Let's try to understand your G days because you were in G in like early 2000s.
2001, 2.
Right?
Kind of, yeah.
That was the time where, if I'm not wrong, G was the place to be.
Yeah.
That was the time when the true AI, true analytics industry of this country, those leaders were working in that company at that time.
Yeah.
So would you like to talk a bit about your experience? Also mention some names that truly impacted you.
Sure, no, absolutely. So in fact, it's a memory which I have very fresh in my mind. It was kind of those days in 2002 when we graduated, it was kind of a recession, if you like, because there was a dot-com burst and there were not many companies offering jobs, especially to the freshers. And then I happened to meet a guy and then he told me there is a walk-in going on. So when I went there was a big queue, right? And then happened to meet some good people. In fact, I still remember the interview. There was a guy by name Bali Prabhakar, who was my mentor for many years after I joined GE. And then he did interview for about 15-20 minutes. And then I wasn't satisfied with that interview and the questions he asked. Then I asked him, can you ask me more? Because I have prepared so much for the interview. And then he said, okay, let's go for a coffee. And then we went for a coffee and then that entire discussion lasted for about an hour. And then, if I recall, I think out of like 50, 60 people, 2 people were selected, myself and then my colleague Rashmi, if I remember the name right, Rashmi BJ. So 2 of us got selected into what they used to call as a global talent pool or something like that. It was a global teams. And then we were lucky to get into GE. First of all, it was, as you rightly said, was the most admired company those days with a valuation of around 100 billion.
Jack Welch was at the helm, right?
Exactly. Jack Welch was there. And then we had an amazing leader by name Bharat Kalyanram, who was kind of the MD and the CEO of the local setup what we had. And those days GE was already had digitized lots of its processes. And then when I got into Six Sigma, my job was to kind of optimize the quality and the operations within the manufacturing. And then my role was actually a business analyst role, not much of a technology, because GE, it was always, we used to outsource technology work to different vendors. But as a business analyst, I wasn't satisfied with the work which was being done by many vendors. And then I had to kind of get my hands dirty. And those days we had tools like Informatica, Business Objects, and then we had Six Sigma tools, which I had to kind of learn on my own. And then that's where my data analytics journey started. It wasn't by plan or a design. It just happened because I was passionate to solve business problems, which we were not able to do just with the technical people. So I kind of, at the intersection of business and the data and the technology, I felt I could do a better job if I kind of...
So you were good with math, if I'm not wrong.
Maths always, yeah.
Math was your strong point, right? Because if I try to see a common point in true analytics AI leaders, and all of them tell me the same thing. No one thought of entering this industry because it did not exist when you were studying. But because you understood logic, you understood how numbers, data works, probably because of math, stats. That was the segue, right? And similarly happening now with analytics to AI.
Correct, exactly.
That's what is happening
It's
now.
a very natural evolution, if you like. In fact, I believe most of us as an engineers are good at maths. That's what I believe, and that definitely helped us. And me coming from a small business family also helped me see everything from a business angle, right? See, I never thought or sought technology for technology. For me, always, how can it solve a business problem? That was the question I always had, even from the day one of my job. Like, how can I improve quality? How can I make processes efficient? Leveraging technology. That's why if you look at my entire career, I have worked on tons of technology and never got stuck to one because it kept evolving. And then I always used them as a means to solve business problems and never saw technology as on its own as a domain, right? So that was kind of starting point, and as I said, the Bali who kind of interviewed me, and we also had a leader those days. She was Chief Operating Officer, Sheila Singh. I still remember, and she was very, very supportive, and she kind of mentored us. We were like just kids, coming out of the college with no knowledge of how to even deal with international stakeholders and stuff like that. So it was under her leadership, Bharat Kalyanram's leadership, people like Bali who kind of were colleagues. We were exposed to a full global environment. While we were sitting here in Bangalore, Cambridge Road office, but every day we would interact with people in US, in Europe, in Asia, everywhere. It was like a kind of a mini MBA, if you like, right? Within a very organized structure. And that kind of exposed me to a global environment, technology landscape, and the kind of business organizations do. And that was kind of start of data and analytics journey. And then, I spent about 4.5 years at GE. I went to US, through my
This was your first time going to the US?
Yes, first time.
Tell us about that.
Yeah. So in fact, it's very memorable for me because it was a business trip, the first one. And then the airport was actually the old one in the HAL.
HAL.
And I used to stay in west of Bangalore those days, Basaveshwar.
Right.
And then I underestimated the the traffic and the time it takes. And then I came and then I realized, in fact, my family had come to kind of see me off as it was my first visit. And then I came there, the flight is gone. Everybody
What?
was there. Yeah, the flight was gone.
Seriously?
Yeah, it was gone. I missed the flight. And then everybody is there anyway.
Shit.
So I don't know what to do. And then
You're serious about it? You actually missed it?
I did miss the flight.
It will be very expensive at that time, right?
Very expensive. I was scared as well because I had no idea how company would treat me because it's money, right?
Right.
And then luckily I went to the check-in counter. I told them I missed it. Luckily my connecting flight from Mumbai was like overnight.
Okay.
So I had a kind of
Fair.
4 or 5 hours of gap, and then they said, okay, there's another flight leaving to Mumbai in 2 hours. You can probably take that.
You paid from your own money?
No. I think those days, I don't know, probably GE had kind of flexible tickets or whatever.
Okay.
They didn't charge me anything.
Okay. I'm curious. That's
That was a big relief. I'm like a nobody in the company, very junior, kind of irresponsible, not to reach on time.
Yes.
Yeah, but then it worked out well. And then I landed in Louisville, Kentucky. That's where we had Appliance Park. That's the business I used to work with. And then, I still remember my manager those days was another Indian, L. Srinivasan. He came to pick me up in the airport first time. And then he took me to dinner from the airport straight. In fact, it was like a bright, sunny day. And I was like wondering, why is he taking me to dinner so early? Because my time was not set. I don't know the local time.
Oh, shit.
And then I realized it's already 9:30.
And it doesn't show in the US.
The sun is like afternoon here.
Yeah.
Then he told me, Madhu, it's already 9:30.
Wow.
Time to go for dinner.
Right.
And then, GE had amazing policies and facilities, and they really took care of me very well. They had kind of fantastic stay, whoever goes there, and all the facilities needed, so you will kind of feel at home. And then that was first time I visited US and happened to see my colleagues and the factory and the real business, right? And then everywhere I went, the GE was so popular. It made me really proud. In fact, once I remember we went to Niagara Falls as a kind of bunch of friends, and one of my colleague had put the handbrake on, and we drove like hundreds of miles, and then something was burning and we could smell it, and then it was already like 10:30, 11 in the night. And then we were a bit scared also because we were told not to go out late in the night, and then we were like, no shops are open, nothing, and there was one subway or something like that. We kind of went to seek help because the car is not starting anymore. And then we knocked the door. They were like reluctant to open because they were also not welcoming guests at that time. And then we tell them like we are employees of GE, and they immediately opened the door, and they were like so passionately talking about GE, saying, okay, we use GE heater, we use GE wine storage. They were like really, really proud of GE, and we felt really good. And that's when I realized GE is not just a company, it's kind of an emotion in US.
Did you ever feel that in your career ever again? Because what GE has is a cult following. Especially at that time, it was more than just a cult following, right?
Yeah, a lot of leaders come.
Did you ever feel that that sense of pride for your own company, like that is like next level?
Yeah, always. Even now, I credit most of what I am to the initial years in GE, right? No doubt about it, because the kind of the work environment they had, the kind of exposure what we had, the kind of leadership what we had, even till today, I miss it. In fact, now, most of us have become leaders. We try to actually bring that culture wherever we go. But I think they had a great setup. It's like a university where leaderships are groomed.
I think that's a true institution, right? Like 20 years down the lane, look how well you're talking about it. Like I think that's the real value of a company.
Absolutely. I still proudly say I'm still in touch with many of my colleagues in GE, and all of them are doing really, really well in different companies. The good thing is wherever you go, you get to see a GE person. Even when I joined Schneider Electric, surprisingly, I was having a call with one of my colleagues in US. It was a big meeting, and then I see my ex-colleague Steve Delaney right there. Right? It was very surprising to me. The person whom I worked with in 2002 and 3. Now I'm able to work with him again, and that's the beauty of GE. You have them everywhere. You feel kind of very confident when you step into any other company, because you kind of have a very strong foundation from there. Yeah, so absolutely fantastic experience from GE. And then 2005.
What happened?
No, actually, I for whatever reasons, I was always entrepreneurial in my mind. I wanted to go to US. GE, they used to rotate people. I had to come back to India, and then I wanted to go back. Right? And then obviously GE had some restrictions to move people for longer term, so I had to kind of venture on my own. So then I contacted few consulting agencies who could do my visa, blah blah blah. So I happened to get an H1 done on my own.
How come? Isn't it very tough to get it? Like, especially that time when...
So it was tough. I mean, it has always been tough, but I had the right skills. So I was definitely in the highly skilled category, and I met all the criteria. So there was one consulting small agency who were willing to process my visa. I had to pay for it, and then finally that happened. And then it was actually for me, very young, with no savings, nothing, right? I was kind of venturing on my own. And then I had to finally sell my bike to get the flight tickets.
Wow.
Right? That was the situation.
Which bike was this?
Hyundai Unicorn. So in fact, that was launched. I was probably first one or two second customer for that bike in Bangalore.
Wow. And you were not married at that time?
No, I wasn't married.
That's why.
So then, I sold the bike for the tickets because I had already paid a lot of money for the visa processing. And then I landed in US after getting the visa.
And you didn't have money when you landed, like assuming that you were.
Very little. I'll tell you the story about it. In fact, I had probably maybe 10, 15,000 max. That's what I had.
Rupees.
Rupees, yeah.
Shit.
The only positive thing, the Bali who interviewed me, who was my mentor, was already in US.
Wow.
Right? So he said, come stay with me.
Right.
And then I went there. I stayed with him for a month.
Well, that's crazy. That's crazy.
Yeah. Till I got my SSN, some formalities done and all of that. And then I had to go find my job, right? All I have is a visa, not a job. So then obviously he took care of me for a month. I stayed with him. I had to pay nothing. Food, everything was taken care. And then I also happened to, work in a subway for a few days, for some part-time job.
Amazing.
Because I was not doing anything, right?
What an experience, right?
Yeah. No, that was an amazing experience. So I happened to meet Indian couple, Gujaratis, who were running a subway in the Cincinnati city center. And then I happened to ask them for a job, and they were happy to kind of take my help.
I want your opinion, right? The Indian diaspora. Sometimes what I've seen is Indians outside help Indians more than Indians in India, because
Very natural.
because there is some sense of, because I have also stayed in the US. Whenever I met an Indian family abroad, the kind of hospitality they show to another Indian is just next level. What is your thought on that?
See, it's always like that. For example, if you go to Mumbai, if I have a neighbor as a Bangalorean, there will always be that affection, right? So you always go back to your identity, right? Identity could be starting from a family all the way to the nationality. And it's quite natural when you find a fellow Indian or a Kannadiga or a Bangalorean that bonding is always there because we have at least something in common. So yeah, this happened, the subway happened. It took me about a month to get my SSN, social security number, and then I had to face a lot of interviews. In fact, I didn't have a phone when I went there, so to take interviews, Bali helped me get a phone contract. All of that happened, and then finally when I got a job in California, state government. So I got a consulting job there. So I had to go from Cincinnati to California, and then he helped me with $500, which I could buy a ticket, went there. And then I worked there for around 4-5 months, and then the consulting firm I was working with, it was very small and with no professionalism and stuff like that. So they weren't giving me healthcare insurance. So I was kind of living without a healthcare insurance for a few months.
That's a very big problem.
Very, very dangerous. And then I realized that immediately. And then I thought, okay, I should probably shift to a better organization. And that's how Wipro happened. So Wipro, they were anyway hiring those days, and the skill I was in was kind of in a very high demand. Happened to join them. It was a very good thing that happened that time, because I was kind of without health insurance. So I moved from Roseville, Sacramento. That's where I was with the. In fact, I happened to even meet Arnold Schwarzenegger. He was the governor at that time. I was working in his office.
So, like in the same floor plate?
Same building. So Sacramento is the California kind of state capital.
Yeah.
So they have a kind of administrative office in the center of Sacramento. So I was in the same building, building business analytics for their healthcare department.
Wow.
So analyzing the number of beds, number of patients, the trends, and kind of,
and you were not married at that time?
I wasn't married.
You must, good times, huh?
Yeah, good times. I was independent.
Right.
And actually, it's funny. I mean, when I was in Sacramento, obviously I had no money, right? All I had was $500 landed by Bali. And then I went there, and then salary took some time before it reached me. And then I had to find an accommodation as well. So there is a Davos University right next to Sacramento. So I happened to kind of find a Chinese who was willing to spare another bed for me.
Wow.
So I went there, stayed with him for a week, and then I had to shift again. So within about 2 months, I might have shifted 3 or 4 times, because it was very expensive accommodation in California. So anyway, all that happened for all good reasons. And then Wipro happened. I went to Minneapolis. So Minneapolis is the other northwest of US for a consulting engagement with Target. Target is one of the big retailers in US. Again, that was an amazing experience working with Target. I was there for about 2 years, building their complete end-to-end enterprise data warehouse and enterprise BI. And that's when even actually they started Target India Center here in Bangalore. And I even happened to interview many people for Target India. Being in India, and they always would trust me to interview them. It was a very...
It was started by Mr. Lalit Ahuja, if I'm not wrong.
Correct. So he was kind of more of an MD, but then we were setting up the complete technology competency center. So I was in the headquarters of Target in Minneapolis, kind of interviewing for them. It was a great working environment. I never felt it was more of a vendor-customer relationship. We were kind of part of the same organization. In fact, Wipro had a lot of people in Target those days. It was a big multi-million customer for them. In fact, even today, a lot of my colleagues who are either part of Wipro or Target are actually running the show here in Bangalore. Ankur Mittal, who was my colleague.
Oh, wow.
Anyway, now he's no longer in Target. I think he has moved to Lowe's or something like that. But yeah, a lot of those early friends whom we made in Target are still in touch, and many of them are actually in a very, very good leadership positions in different retail.
Any particular names?
For example, Ankur is now leading the Lowe's, and then we have, I'm trying to recall, so few of them in Tesco, few of them, sorry, I may not recall all the names. So, okay, there is a guy by name Saurabh Swaroop who is kind of now, I think, part of NTT Data. It's been a while.
Yes.
Yeah, Saurabh Swaroop was there. In fact, he was kind of my manager and mentor when I joined.
Wow. Okay.
And then another guy whom I really appreciate was Manojit Majumdar, who is now partner with Deloitte in India. Then there was a guy by name Shashidhar Ediki. I think he's in now probably heading Dell or NTT, something like that. Right? So many of them stayed back in India, in US. Some of us moved. And then the guy whom I was referring to, Manojit Majumdar, he once told me, Madhu, there is a new opportunity in UK, do you want to move? And I was already like 2-3 years in US. I was looking for a change. Right? I'm not a guy who want to be in the same stuff for more than 3 years.
So this means you are leaving Bangalore soon?
No, see, I may change roles and the responsibilities. Bangalore is anyway always a home, but yeah, I always contemplate, right? So it's a never-ending kind of debate in the mind. Yeah, so I was kind of 3 years into Target, and then Manojit asked me, there's a good opportunity in Europe and we are actually developing Europe in a big way. Do you want to go? And then it was more of a pre-sales engagement. Those days it was not yet an account for Wipro that time. So I happened to fly to UK, and then it was kind of a sales engagement. And it is very interesting because the tools which we were proposing to Morrison's was another, I think they are the 4th largest retailer in UK.
Morrison's.
Grocery retailer with very popular brand in UK and most of Europe, I believe now. So we were in a pre-sales mode trying to sell services, and they had chosen, I think, Oracle as a landscape, as a complete ERP, and then as part of that was Oracle BI apps. Those days it was Oracle Business Intelligence Applications, which was an acquisition from Civil Analytics, and they kind of packaged it together. And then, I didn't have that skill. And we had even acquired a company called Enabler those days, who were specialized. 2008.
During the crash.
Exactly. Yeah, I was in UK when the crash happened.
Oh, damn.
So we had acquired this company called Enabler, but then again, the European work culture is different, right? So they wouldn't be very flexible. I mean, now things probably have changed, but they were very kind of, okay, this is my scope of work, this is not my scope of work kind of stuff. And then now we had to demonstrate our capabilities in the Oracle BI space, otherwise we would not have gotten the contract. So then what I had to do, take one computer from the customer, install that software without knowing anything about it, installed it completely and ran it end to end all this happened in like 3-4 days, and I had a working model for them in 4 days.
Wow.
And I went to the extent of changing the Oracle logo on their product to the Morrison's logo. So then when I had to present to them, I told them, okay, here is your working solution. And they said, oh, you already have a solution. We thought this is more presentation.
Wow.
I said, you have a solution, fully working.
This is pre-sales.
In pre-sales, we built complete proof of concept for them with their own data, with their logo, all completely on my own. Right? Because, see, that was the kind of person I was. I would get in, get my hands dirty, do it. Right? Because if you depend on multiple people, speed gets affected. When you are on your own, you could do it. Like 3-4 nights it took, but got it done. And we got the contract. Wow. So it put together, it was probably 100 million contract put together. Wow. And I was, anyway, only part of the BI apps, but we got the full contract. So that's where the Morrison's journey started, and I was with them for around, again, 2.5-3 years. Completely greenfield opportunity to set up, BI, enterprise data warehouse, all the way to building the analytical capabilities for them. Again, amazing exposure for me as an individual and an opportunity to do end-to-end. And we were just a team of 5 or 6 people, with me only technology and everybody else is more managerial and architectural and stuff like that. So probably that's the place where I spent many of my nights kind of developing that solution. And the other problems what we had was, for Oracle, it was a new product and they had a lot of bugs in it. So I also had to kind of build fixes and then suggest to Oracle saying you need to fix these things. So that went really well, and it kind of made me a kind of well-rounded technical person and could see end-to-end all the way from ERPs all the way to the analytics of the business. It exposed me to the sales, how the logistics work, how the food processing works. So it kind of opened up me for more than just the analytics and the manufacturing what I gained in.
So what really made you start up? Because what I understand is a very nice job you are having, very good exposure, clients like these, and I'm sure you were getting more and more opportunities, moving up the value chain, very handsome salary. Why startup? You were married, I assume, when you started?
Yeah, when I went to UK, I was married.
Yeah, so starting up when you were just recently married, young marriage, how did it work?
So what happened, I grew very fast after that Morrison's thing, because
I can imagine.
Obviously, Wipro wanted to grow in Europe, and I was at the right center of it, and we had very good feedback from Morrison's as a customer, and all positive things. And then I was moved more into pre-sales and sales, because obviously we wanted to acquire more customers. And then I felt, many customers didn't know what to do with AI or even, the data what they had. So I felt they need a bit of a consultation rather than just selling.
Right.
So what companies like Wipro were trying to do was, sell it as a commodity, right? Without telling business what actually benefits them or how they can make use of it and make value out of it. So I felt there is a need of consulting, right? But then companies like Wipro were always behind volumes, right?
That's how the business works.
Exactly, and they wouldn't bother like 1% consulting, 2% consulting. So they weren't very, positive about starting a small consulting just to sell. So that's when even actually I still remember one day I had to write to Kurian, who was the CEO that time. I just wrote an email to him saying, we need to consult and educate customers on how this can be used rather than trying to sell them, through PPTs. And then he, in fact, maybe, I don't know if it's just because of my email or maybe he was already planning for that, he started what we call as a sales transformation in UK, where he started educating our salespeople on how to pursue customers with a lot more consultative engagement than trying to sell just the services. So then that happened, and then I still felt it wasn't as I would like it to be. And then I happened to kind of meet few people who were doing MBA, and then I always had this in mind. I wanted to do an MBA because I wanted to understand the business side as well.
Right.
While I kind of knew it, but then I wasn't sure about it, right? So there was nothing to kind of authenticate what my thought process was. And then I happened to kind of give my GMAT, and I gave interview at Oxford and Cambridge, both the universities. Luckily, both of them offered me an MBA because I had the right experience. Wow. I already had 10 years of
Your company sponsored it, or how did it work?
So the way it worked in UK, you could kind of take a break for education, and you get a tax advantage.
I understood.
So Wipro kind of helped me get the tax advantage. So it kind of, I paid it, but Wipro helped me with the tax advantage.
Was there.
Exactly. So then it was kind of 1.5 year an MBA program in said business school. Fantastic experience.
What was your age that time?
I was probably 31, 32.
31, 32. So
32.
Normally MBA, usually people do it at an age of around 26, 25. Usually.
Yeah.
Executive MBA people do later, but so when you were in that class, I'm sure there were people who were much younger to you, older to you also, but younger to you also. So did you feel that because you got access to those young minds, you were as part of their peer for 1.5 years, you got younger as a person in terms of your thinking?
No, actually, in fact, the program I got into was kind of a modular program.
Okay.
Where you had more executives there.
Okay.
And I was probably the youngest one. So I had an advantage of building a network with a lot of experienced people. In fact, my classmate was a chief procurement officer for a large organization in US. And we had a lot of leadership talent from different companies like IBM. And also a lot of, in fact, we had a hair hostess, we had a doctor. It's a very diverse, the way Oxford chooses MBA candidates, they ensure diversity. They make sure you don't have people with the same background. I was probably the only one with kind of an IT background. Everyone else is either from, in fact, we had a farmer from South Africa, we had an air hostess, we had a lot of financial background people. So we had a kind of very diverse environment, which was, I think, the right thing to do in an MBA. It kind of exposed us to different sides of, the diversity. So that happened, and then I was always thinking, what is next? And then I realized companies like Wipro would never be able to get into a consulting space because it doesn't give them volume. That's when I decided, okay, there is an opportunity in the market where we need to create a consulting layer which can educate customers how they can leverage data.
Right.
So that was kind of my starting point for, the startup. And then I happened to meet Vivek Oberoi, the movie actor, through a friend. And he was kind of tech savvy, while I don't know how many people know, while he's a celebrity and into acting, but he's a very tech savvy guy. So then we kind of brainstormed how if we start a AI startup those days, in 2013. And then we kind of agreed, I decided to move back to India while I was still there while we are setting it up. But then I eventually moved back to Mumbai. I stayed in Mumbai for 3 years. So leveraging my network in Oxford, leveraging his network in the India corporate world. In fact, the first contract we got was around 2 million. So it was kind of, good start for us. And
how many people were there in your team at that time?
So we were following a very unique model. Since we wanted to be more in consulting, all the execution we would partner with someone to do it. In fact, those days I partnered with a company called Manthan. So they would do the execution part.
AI economy, which is now Atul Jalan, right?
Atul Jalan. So in fact, Atul Jalan, it's kind of a lot of ex-Wiproites there. We have Vivek Basen, we have and there's a guy, another Madhu. So anyway, so I kind of partnered with Manthan. I partnered with PRDC, which is a power research company. I also partnered with Wipro for some kind of work. So it was a network of many companies where I would be the consultative layer, and they would do the execution because that was the missing part.
It's a good model, very lean model.
very lean model. I had no investment to
That's
make.
what I'm saying. No
Correct.
bench cost, nothing.
No bench cost, because I couldn't even have afforded it even if I wanted to. And then I felt I can't afford expensive resources like that in the beginning at least. And then I felt the opportunity was in this middle layer, not necessarily in the bottom of the pyramid.
True.
Where the margins, it's a margin game and time and material game.
True.
Right? So that's how the journey started, and I got amazing support for sure. We had customers in UK. We also were pursuing many customers in US and India also. The traction was building. It was all going well, and then I bumped into a lot of partnership issues, right? Which kind of became legal. That was probably the toughest time in my life, if I have to say. Yeah.
Talk a bit more about it, please.
Sure. See, usually what happens when you start a startup, you believe in the idea and you are confident about your capabilities. But then what happens when you start execution? There are a lot of factors which are outside of your control. For example, payments from customers, right? And the problem with startups is both sides, whether you lose money or make money, it can create a lot of differences among the partnerships. It's like a marriage, right? Things can go wrong.
Right.
And that's what happened. And then when you have differences, it kind of turned a bit ugly, became legal cases. And there was a period where I had no access to financial resources because it was all under dispute.
Really?
So it was a bit of a tough time. And that's when I kind of started, contemplating, should I continue a year, or should I probably do something else. It was kind of a tough time, I would say, in my life. And then I was still kind of doing consulting, and then Schneider happened, and then I joined, right? So that's kind of a last bit of a rough journey, especially the legalities, because that's something you don't anticipate when you start. This is what even I tell many people who kind of want to start up, and they come to seek my advice. I tell them, see, please anticipate the worst, right? Don't only think positive, and don't only think everything is in your control. While the idea, even execution to some extent, could be in your control. There are a lot of factors, especially legal and finance, they need to be prepared for.
So you ideally should have a very strong co-founder with you in that journey. I think that's one thing you would, if you had to look back, what would you do differently if you had to start up again?
See, to be honest, I don't have an answer, because partnerships can go
Both ways.
wrong depending on the person. Right?
बहुत मुश्किल.
I don't think I can say, if there was another partner, it could have been better.
Fair enough. Fair.
Right? Because you don't know, because see, this is a money game. When you start making money, differences pop up.
If you don't make money, then also the power.
Then also another problem, right? See, this is where partnership for me is a make or a break in a startup.
100%.
So that's where even I suggest many people, if you can, be on your own till you reach a point, rather than kind of marrying in the beginning itself, unless you really have, again, it's difficult to say, even you may have had a fantastic understanding in the beginning, but things change,
Right.
And all of them have their own families and things like that. So it's difficult to say, if that relationship will work really long or not. Okay.
Fair enough.
So yeah, I don't think I have an answer if I could have done it better. But then, the experience it offered was probably much more than what I could have learned in my entire life. Right? It exposed me to the legal aspects. It exposed me to the regulation aspects. It exposed me to the financial planning aspects.
Right.
It definitely made me a different person. In fact, it was so low that time. I mean, in my journey, the only thing which really helped me was my running, and that's when I started running.
Really?
Yeah, it was tough time. Because legal battles are not easy, right? You need a lot of patience. You need to keep spending money. You have no idea which direction it will go. So a lot of stress, actually. And then I happened to, start running. So I was like running crazy, like 10, 15 kilometers every stretch, every day.
So you are part of this. There's a
That's where I met Pankaj, actually.
Okay. I think in all the podcasts we do, Pankaj's name comes somehow or somewhere.
Because we kind of run in, I run in Agara, he run in Agara, we sometimes meet up in Kaban Park, so we kind of have common places where we run. So that really helped me. Today, if I have to thank something, that's my choice of picking to running those days, because it was the only way I could pick myself back. Right? So then, then when you are left with no option, you have to be strong. There's no other option. So that's what I think kept me going. And then it took me about a year or two to kind of come out of it, because see, startup failure can really get to you. Because it's something you dreamt of, you have sacrificed so much, you have left, well-paying job and good lifestyle. All of that you have sacrificed and you have really contributed, wholeheartedly. And when things fail, some people kind of get into depression and stuff like that. But luckily for me, I think running helped. I mean, I don't think anything else could have brought me back in a positive way. But running kind of transformed something in me for sure, because it's transformative for sure. And then I kind of kept consulting on my own for a brief period, and that's when I was consulting to Schneider, and then 2018 it happened.
So Madhu, Schneider, right? Schneider, people know Schneider Electric, what they do, but AI ka kya role hai? What is AI doing here? Can you quickly explain us?
Sure. So see, Schneider, many people actually don't know about it, right? It's because a B2B company. In fact, often people get confused between Schneider and Schindler, because Schindler is an elevator company which many people know. Even,
full disclosure, I also was a bit.
So because they sound same, both are a German name, so it's quite obvious.
Right.
But actually, Schindler is one of our big customers.
Right.
See, Schneider Electric as an organization, they have a history of around 100 years. They are leaders in two domains. One is what we call as energy management, where we kind of offer to different energy-related products. And then another one is industry automation. So industry automation meaning connecting. No, not really. So this is like real manufacturing automation, right? With machines connected through IoT, edge computing, and all of that. Right? So this is our domain. Okay. So now coming back to where do we use AI? So I would broadly classify our AI applications into three buckets. One is we use AI for our internal operations, sales,
efficiency,
finance,
to optimize,
supply chain, optimization, efficiency. And then we use AI within our customer offers, like when we sell, let's say, a building management system, right, or a machine advisory. So it has a lot of AI in it, okay, and which is part of the industry automation. And the third one is we also have started offering AI offers and services to our customers, to the existing customers.
As a service business.
As a service. So we, in fact, I don't know if you know, Aviva, which is one of the well-known AI company. No, there is a AVEVA, which is, they call it digital twin solution. It's a company acquired by Schneider.
Acha.
Right, so it's into digital twin.
So you guys acquired such companies also?
Yeah, so we acquired Aviva, we have acquired RIB, we have acquired SIPI. These are all software companies.
So as a company, in terms of long-term strategy,
we want to be a digital player. That's our... In fact, we have a platform called EcoStructure, which we believe would transform the industrial automation. It becomes a platform where you bring in multiple edge computing, IoT all together, and it's supposed to create an autonomous factories, for example. Right? So that's the kind of vision the company has, and these are the three areas where we leverage AI.
And so now let's talk a bit about AI, right? And everyone I think has been talking about it with GPT and all of that. What do you think an AI? How fast do you think it can impact us, and how fast do you think it can impact jobs? Because everyone knows AI is going to make it big. Everyone is using ChatGPT. I personally use it a lot, but we still in our heads feel कि हाँ ठीक है, मतलब अभी तो time है. How fast do you think this can make a dent?
See, I mean, the not only ChatGPT, the technologies today, the pace at which they are impacting is really high. In the sense, what used to take 10 years to disrupt in the olden days now is like a year, right? with something like ChatGPT, it's already there. In fact, if you had asked me this question 5 years back, I would have said maybe 3, 4 years or 5 years. But now it's already there. It has started impacting. So I don't think there is any more time for it to impact. Jobs, I'll come to that later. But it's going to start impacting each one of us in different ways. Especially now that Microsoft has has a stake in it, it changes the whole game.
Because AWS plays.
Not only
not
Azure.
Azure.
It's not just Azure, right? So now they are integrating ChatGPT with the MS Teams, like the complete Office 365, where there's a lot of language, whether it's your Word document, whether it's your Excel, whether it's your MS Teams. So there's a lot of language. Now they are bringing what they call as a Copilot, which would assist,
GitHub has it.
Yeah, GitHub, they kind of have a full scope. So GitHub, they can generate code with Word document, they can actually draft it. With MS Teams, they can automate a lot of customer queries and things like that. So you're going to see a lot of impact very soon. It's no more a hype, it's a reality. It's already there, and it's going to show the value very soon. Now, will it affect jobs? See, I'll tell you, every technology, from the time we remember, has always affected jobs of one sector, but it has created jobs in another sector.
Yes.
So usually you see a change in shift or a shift in the jobs rather than jobs going
right.
or creating unemployment, right? So for example, when industrial automation happened, the manufacturing picked up, many laborers lost jobs because you had tractors doing the agriculture and you had machines doing what otherwise they would do manually. And then when IT happened, obviously many people lost jobs in the processes because you automated a lot of processes.
BPO did it, and then
exactly, and then ERP happened. So every time you see jobs shifted from one sector to another, but I don't think it created a lot of unemployment. Having said that, maybe there will be some sections, unfortunate, who may have to upskill themselves to stay relevant. Otherwise, unemployment can happen. Right? So I think the times we are in, kind of constant skilling, reskilling ourselves is very inevitable.
You do that?
I do it. Unfortunately, I'm in the AI space, so it's kind of I'm at the right place, I would say. But then again, see, one thing I usually tell people is, when we talk about skilling AI, it's not just going and learning Python or becoming a data scientist. That's not what we want. What we really want is people knowing how to use it.
Yes.
Right? Because say, I've seen a lot of people with, like, let's say 15, 20 years of experience in whatever they do, trying to shift to a data science job, which is actually, in my view, counterproductive, because you're leaving 15 years of your experience in something else and competing with a fresher. Right? Which in my view is not the right thing to do. Rather, the people with like 15, 20 years of experience, they should understand where to use it and then use it in their own domains. Let's say you are an ERP person, good at SAP. You can actually be creative in finding how can I use my AI application. It's like, see, when the cars came, all we had to do was use it, not learn how the engine works or the brakes work. You had to just use it for your business purpose. So I think this is what is needed. While technology definitely is going to disrupt, but then you have to use those applications for your benefit and help the business. At the end, it's all business, right? Perfect. I mean, if business is not doing well, none of us will have job. So everyone have to change their mindset to use it rather than learn coding.
Very well said. I think a lot of thought for all of us. So Madhu, one last question as we have. If you had to give one piece of advice to your younger self or any 20 to 23-year-old person, what would that be?
So again, I don't believe in like frameworks, because that kills creativity, that kills individuality, and also sometimes it would misguide also, because all of us come with different capabilities. At the moment you kind of try to frame it, it could be counterproductive. But anyway, if I have to kind of give one or two suggestions. From 20 to 30, I think one should focus on education and exposure, right? Not with a fixed mindset, rather with an open mindset, because possibilities you will know better once you have better exposure. And 30 to 40, if you like, maybe use it for more execution and experience.
Yes.
Right, because that's when you already have a bit of a clarity what you want to do, what possibilities are out there after your education exposure. You kind of focus more on execution, and then afterwards, focus more on executive jobs, because you want to scale, and the scale comes when you can lead a bunch of young talent, right, and leverage their energies and the curiosities.
That's
so
it.
Kind of 40 onwards, kind of take up more leadership roles, executive roles, where you can actually scale your own capability among hundreds of youngsters, right? So kind of very broad framework, but you got to be agile within it, right? It's not like, okay, I've said 30, I have to wait till, because, for example, if someone starts a startup, right, this entire 30 years what I said, they may experience in 3 years,
right.
Because the scale at which startups move is very fast compared to a corporate job.
Very true.
So you need to have a framework, at the same time need to be very agile, because life never works as we plan, right? So one has to be really agile. So that would be my advice to the youngsters. Have a little bit of a planning, but don't expect plans to work as you want. Be agile. Also keep steering yourself as the opportunities come. Be open, don't fix yourself, because often I hear the quote saying you should do what you like to do or what you love to do. But the unfortunate reality is, when you are in 20s, you don't know what you love to do, right? That time you may want to become Shah Rukh Khan, you may want to become Modi, but that's not the reality. Right? So that's why I think people should give some time to gain more exposure, because the more exposure you have, your perspective will broaden. See, today you may be seeing only a limited perspective.
True.
The moment you expose yourself, the perspective will become very broad, and then you probably will be in a position to say, this is what I want, right? Rather than doing that decision early on,
Very cool.
and probably leading to a more failure.
Perfect. I think this was a very, very, very fun chat, and I think we have to have more chats about AI, because I see the depthness of your knowledge. We are all trying to learn more about it. So thank you so much. Thank you, Madhu. Thank you so much for
Thank you
your time.
very much.
Lovely time.
Share the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you.